subscriber to the Soul Crossings channel, then you will know that we've reached number 90. 90 transitions on the channel. It's absolutely incredible. If you haven't checked them out, you might want to. They're really fascinating. And we're down to the final 10. One of the most requested ones was actually Lucille Ball. I think probably because there have been movies and TV shows about her recently. I didn't see them, but I know that people love Lucille Ball. She started her career in the 1930s under the name Diane Belmont, and did Broadway, radio, ended up in television, obviously did The Lucy Show, then formed her own production company with her husband Desi Arnaz, became the first female head of a production company in Hollywood, and produced Mission Impossible, The Untouchables, Star Trek. They were her shows. Eventually she sold out to Gulf and Western, which became Paramount, and made a ton of money from that. But very, very successful woman. She died in 1989 of an aortic aneurysm. She went into hospital to have an operation and basically just died. She had such a successful life, and many people said, will you please take a look at her? When I found her, she was on the edge, well, kind of teetering on the edge of a mountain or a cliff or something. And it could go either way. She might fall, she might come back. Obviously something to do with the operation, whether it will be a success or not. And eventually, there was something just pushed her right over the edge and she fell. Down and down and down. The clouds that she fell through were very clammy and cloying, a bit like walking through a dense fog. Almost like she was being cushioned from a very, very steep and dangerous fall. Eventually, she landed in that metaphorical cave I always see. At which point, the cloud was sucked back up, leaving her on the ground, dazed. Oh, real relief that that phase was over. But quickly, the oh of relief turned to oh. There was a sense of, I get it. I see what's happened. We went a little too far. All right, well, how do we reverse this? How do we get out of it? It was almost like if you went into a big cave at the ocean where the only way out was up and there was a rope dangling down. Once you jumped off the rope, you couldn't get back on the rope again. It was just too high. It's like, oh, I'm trapped here. It didn't sit easily with her at all, this. She was walking around going, I should have taken this more seriously. I really should. I mean, she died essentially of a smoking-related illness. She was a very heavy smoker throughout her life. And I'm never very sure why people of that era didn't, as they were smoking, think, this can't be good for me. I'm sure the human body wasn't meant to accept so many toxic gases during a lifetime. I mean, why do firemen carry bodies out of a fire over their shoulder? Smoke inhalation, of course. Would you go to a bonfire and breathe in the fumes? No, you wouldn't. Yet that's what she did for a lifetime. And now she finally realized that maybe she could have averted this by taking more care of herself. She was very frustrated that she had lost control over this situation. She had things to do. There was business unfinished that she'd left behind. Come on, let's go back and sort this out. I promise to be a good girl in future. No. And she fell to her knees as she fully realized what had happened. And of course, there is a pull up the tunnel. There is a current to it. You can't just sit on your knees and go, I'm not going. You have to go. But she went on her hands and knees. I think, judging from this, that she must have been a very, very responsible woman. Very dutiful. Or else she was compensating for something that was missing inside of herself by overworking, by overgiving, by overcommitting, whatever it was. But her reluctance to go into the light was nothing to do with fear of death. It was her responsibility to other people, to her work, to the world, or whatever it was. And as I watched, a white ramp appeared in front of her. because she was scuffing her knees, metaphorically, on the rock of this tunnel. And it was almost like Grace said, yeah, let's make it easier for you. Come on. Because I think Lucille Ball was what you might call a human doing. She just did things. She accomplished things. She made money. She made TV. She made movies. When in actual fact, we're really beings. Everything else, the doingness, is just stuff we occupy ourselves with in a mortal lifetime. But at our core, we are a being. And she couldn't separate the two, the being from the doing. But Grace was inviting her now to take an easier path and go, come on, be here. And she went up the ramp, not necessarily willingly, but up the ramp, into the light, and vanished. But that was so interesting. We place so much emphasis on what we have to do, who we have to see, where we have to go, what we have to accomplish. And yet, when we meditate, hopefully, we are making contact with our being. We're like a being and then a human wrapped around it. That makes a human being. But once we become a human doing, and that's all we are, then we lose contact with our core. And that's what it seemed Lucille Ball had done. By the way, just out of interest, yesterday I did transition pictures for one of Putin's dead generals. You know, he's lost 7 generals. This one, Yakov Rezantsev, was commander of Russia's combined 49th Army. I don't know how he died, but it's a huge loss to Putin. And I thought I'd take a look at his pictures and see what happened to him. And when I found him, he was wandering around a smoke-filled landscape. And I don't mean like war zone smoke. It was more like stage smoke in a way, just drifting across, a bit like a fog. Where are my men? What's happening? Where is everybody? Where are my troops? He was totally mystified. And he felt brainwashed. You know that thing about the human being and the human doing? He felt like a human doing, completely divorced from who he really was, like he'd been hypnotized. Or he bought a narrative to such an extent that the actual being side of him, the compassionate, kind, loving side of him, had been completely obliterated. He was just wandering through this landscape. He was very confused, didn't realize he was dead. This was just a continuation of the life he'd been leading. When he emerged from the smoke, there was a down escalator, like you see in parking garages in shopping malls. Go down a level, down a level, down a level. He set off down, very dark, didn't really understand what was going on. Got to the next level, went down again. Went down and down and down. There's a part of him thought, hang on a minute, am I going to hell? Is this what's happened? Have I earned this? Down and down and down. Until he came to the dome, actually, that I always see. That symbolic dome. There was a rim. He stood on it, looked into the light, and thought, this is it? That's all? I got a very definite sense that this guy was simply a tool, an instrument. He'd been born simply to serve a purpose. As part of tens of thousands of similar people who were committing atrocities in order to, what? Shake the world out of its complacency? To energize democracies against authoritarianism? But he was just a tool. Nobody wants to think of their life as being simply, oh, we put you on the earth so that you could do this horrible thing. But as he stared into the light, that's the feeling he got. I've been used. You mean that's all I was? That entire life I had, it counted for nothing? I just had to do this horrible thing? It was a very powerful moment. And the universe said, just come on, get into the light. You're done. Job over. Thank you for your service. And he just jumped into the light. He had been a human doing. And his beingness had been suppressed to the point of not being acknowledged, recognized, and so on. Because he was simply an instrument of the divine. There is some bigger picture here of which we are unaware. Maybe this Ukraine thing, as horrendous as it is, had to happen to wake us up, to usher in the age of Aquarius. Not in any way that we would have chosen, but the jolt will startle us into appreciating the benefits of cooperation and collaboration rather than competition, of working together as one rather than fighting each other, and of the importance of the earth as a whole rather than territorial elements within it. That isn't your land. You rent it, whoever you are, whether you're Putin or this general. It's not your land. It's just a pile of rocks. Maybe that's what this is all about. And it has to play out with people like this so that we can appreciate going forward the value of working together as one, of sharing, of love, of collaboration, and so on. That's what it felt like.